What if NFL players were intentionally letting their own quarterback get hit, just to make him look bad? That's the question everyone's asking right now, as the Cleveland Browns sit at the center of what could become one of the most explosive scandals in modern football history. This isn't about bad play calling or a few missed blocks. This is something darker. Game footage surfacing over the past few weeks shows moments so bizarre, so blatant, that fans, analysts, and even former NFL players are saying there's only one possible explanation: sabotage. At the heart of it all is rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders, a young star with sky-high potential, thrown into the fire behind an offensive line that might not just be failing him, but turning on him. The plays in question are shocking. Linemen not even pretending to block. Others literally falling to the ground untouched. And it's all happening on crucial downs, the kind of situations where every yard, every assignment, every second counts. So is this just a series of unexplainable mistakes, or are veterans on the Browns sending a message? Because if the reports are true, if this is intentional, the ripple effect will shake the NFL to its core. Let's break down what's really happening in Cleveland. If you're thinking this sounds too crazy to be true, you're not alone. The idea that professional athletes, men who have spent their lives grinding, training, and sacrificing everything to make it to the NFL, would risk not only their reputation but another player's health. It sounds unthinkable. But once you actually sit down and watch the footage that's being dissected online, the question is whether the offensive line is playing poorly. It's whether they're playing at all. This isn't your standard, bad O-line performance. We're talking about plays where linemen are standing completely still after the snap. Others fall forward like they've tripped over their own feet, or just drift off to the side, ignoring incoming defenders altogether. On certain snaps, it looks like the front five are five strangers meeting for the first time, not a professional unit with months of reps, drills, and chemistry under their belt. And what makes it more chilling is that none of this looks accidental. These breakdowns aren't subtle. They're not happening under pressure, during blitzes, or as a result of confusion. They're happening in open space with clear assignments against basic defensive formations. And yet, linemen are simply not doing their job. One of the most circulated clips, viewed millions of times online and picked apart from every angle, shows Browns offensive lineman number 72 literally standing still after the ball is snapped, turning his head and watching as defenders sprint past him and slam into Shedeur Sanders. Not a single step sideways. No reaction. No block. Just a front row seat to his own quarterback getting demolished. And when fans asked the obvious question, who was he supposed to block? There was no real answer. Because in the footage, there's no defender in front of him. No stunt, no confusion, just one guy watching. And then you start to notice it's not just one guy. Across multiple games, on multiple plays, there are moments that leave analysts speechless, literally questioning whether they're seeing reality. Entire groups of linemen routinely miss assignments, as if there's no communication on the field whatsoever. Defenders come completely unblocked, untouched, barreling down on Sanders before he can finish his first read. And somehow it keeps happening over and over again. Former NFL quarterback Chase Daniel, known for his breakdowns of quarterbacks and protection schemes, recently called out the Browns line publicly, saying they did help Shedeur at all. That might be the most generous take so far, because not helping doesn't explain falling over. It doesn't explain standing around. And it definitely doesn't explain multiple professional linemen letting identical breakdowns happen week after week without any seeming attempt to correct it. What this raises isn't just questions about talent. It forces you to ask, is this intentional? Because if it isn't, if this is just poor execution, how can it keep repeating itself in the exact same way? Defensive coordinators have picked up on these patterns too. They're dialing up pressure constantly because they know the Browns line won't hold. And every time it happens, Sanders is the one absorbing the pain. This is far beyond normal growing pains for a team trying to find itself. Poor blocking happens. Even good linemen miss assignments. But what's happening to Shedeur Sanders can't be written off as a few bad games. There's a pattern. And by now, it's unmistakable. The blocking collapses don't reflect miscommunication, they reflect no communication. And worse, no effort. And then there's the body language. If you've sat through enough NFL tape, you begin to recognize certain things. Offensive linemen who care, even if they whiff on a block, chase down defenders. They dive back into the pile. They help their quarterback up. They argue calls, they fight. But when you watch the Browns' offense back, especially the trenches, what you see is different. Heads hanging, shoulders slumped. Players walking slowly back to the huddle after a hit that leaves Sanders on the turf, wincing. On one drive, not a single lineman extends a hand to help him up. Not one. That's not normal in the NFL. That's not chemistry. That doesn't just hint at dysfunction, it screams something deeper. Shedeur Sanders is a rookie, yes. He's not a finished product and no one expects perfection. But his teammates don't look indifferent, they look detached. There's no urgency, no fire. It's as if every sack, every blow he takes, is something they've already emotionally detached from. Like they knew it was coming. Or worse, wanted it to. And given the rumors now swirling around the locker room, resentment of Dayan's influence, frustration from veterans who feel passed, over, or disrespected, it's impossible to ignore what might be happening beneath the surface. Because once the on-field behavior starts supporting the off-field whispers, it becomes less about coincidence and more about confirmation. Pieces begin to fit in ways they shouldn't, like a puzzle nobody wanted to finish, but someone just did. If you're thinking there has to be some kind of deeper investigation, you're not alone. Turns out, the NFL might already be on it. Analysts say league officials have reportedly begun reviewing specific game tape. A few sources close to the situation have even claimed that players and staff are being questioned. And the more footage comes to light, the more undeniable this strange, dangerous pattern becomes. But if what we're seeing now is just the tip of the iceberg, the next play might be even worse. There's one play that sparked all of this. One moment that sent fans into a frenzy, got former players genuinely concerned, and forced NFL insiders to stop what they were doing and rewatch it in disbelief. A single clip that's now crawling its way through sports media like wildfire. And if you haven't seen it yet, it might be the clearest piece of evidence that something is very, very wrong in Cleveland. It takes place in the first quarter, with the Browns in a tight situation, nothing unusual. The play is routine on the surface. Sanders lines up in shotgun. Everyone else lined up correctly. The defense doesn't show anything exotic. The ball is snapped. And then time slows down. Or at least that's how it feels when you watch what number 72 does, or rather, what he doesn't do. While the rest of the field erupts into motion, number 72 does the unthinkable. He just stands still. No false step, no chip, no hesitation, literally nothing. He isn't slow off the ball, he acts like the play hasn't even started. And worse, he locks eyes with Sanders as the pocket collapses, making no effort to react, reach for a block, slide to help a teammate, or even move out of the way. He just watches, like a spectator, like a fan with the best seat in the house, waiting to see how hard his quarterback is about to get hit. And Sanders does get hit hard, blindsided by a defensive lineman with a full-speed free run at him. A hit that was avoidable, preventable. A hit that never should have even been possible if the most basic parts of this offensive scheme were working. After that clip hit social media, it spread instantly. Slow-motion replays, frame-by-frame breakdowns, analysts drawing red circles and arrows asking, "What is this guy doing?" Athletes with decades of NFL experience publicly wondering how something like this could happen in a professional game. Because here's the thing, this isn't a miscommunication. Number 72 wasn't double-teaming the wrong man. He wasn't trying to pick up a late blitz and got caught out of position. He literally had no assignment, no movement, no effort. And that's what has so many people alarmed. There's no football explanation for this. None. You'd expect something, even a fake block. Even confusion would be better than this. What we got instead was stillness. Intentional, chilling stillness. And it raises a question that won't go away. If he wasn't blocking anyone by accident, was he doing it on purpose? Chase Daniel, a former NFL quarterback who's played behind some of the league's best offensive lines, posted a breakdown that sent chills through the fanbase. He said flat out, "They didn't help Sanders at all." But that description, as accurate as it was, almost understates the moment. Because this wasn't just a lack of help. It was watching a guy turn into a bystander in a moment of crisis. No other profession would accept this. Imagine a firefighter standing still while the rest of the team charges into a burning building. Imagine a pilot dropping their hands off the controls mid-flight. That's what this looked like. And while it might be easy to say it's one play, one guy, one mental lapse, it wasn't an isolated glitch. This play was just the one that went viral, the one that blew the roof off. But once people went back and started watching more of the Browns' tape, it became clear that number 72 wasn't alone, and that this wasn't the only time something like this happened. And still, This moment resonates for a reason. There's something emotionally disturbing about watching a quarterback drop back with so much faith in the system around him, only to be betrayed in real time. Sanders can't see it coming. He doesn't know number 72 has already checked out of the play. He's operating under the assumption that someone has his blind side until the hit comes. And this wasn't just any quarterback. This was Shedeur Sanders, a rookie with enormous pressure. All eyes on him. His debut season. His shot to prove he belongs in the pros. And there's his own teammate doing nothing, fully aware of what's about to happen, failing him in the most personal, brutal, and public way imaginable. For many fans, this was the moment it all clicked. The moment when the rumors, the whispers of locker room tension, of resentment toward Deion Sanders and his son, the grumbling about Sanders not earning it, all those things collided in one jaw-dropping frame of footage. The dots suddenly felt connected. And people started asking, is this sabotage? Because it no longer looked like speculation. It looked like motive, means, and evidence playing out frame by painful frame. And the most terrifying part, that still might not be the worst play on tape. If the viral number 72 moment was strange, what happened next was flat-out horrifying. It's the Browns' matchup against the 49ers, an intense game with high stakes, where every possession mattered. Early buzz had already swirled about how broken the offensive line looked. But no one was prepared for what they were about to see on one specific play, a crucial fourth, and one just outside the red zone, the type of high-pressure moment NFL players live for. This is where the best step up, and where this story took a turn into complete chaos. The ball is snapped. Right tackle Jack Conklin, a seasoned veteran, launches forward in what can only be described as a Superman dive, a wild flailing jump that makes no football sense. No assignment, no technique, no impact. He throws his body toward nothing. Literally nothing. There's no defensive lineman within reach. No combo block in sight. It's the kind of movement that doesn't even happen in basic Pee-wee football. Viewers froze. Announcers fell silent. Analysts stared at the screen, unsure if they just saw a man lose balance or pull off the worst acting job in NFL history. But even that strange spectacle wasn't the worst part, because just a few feet to Conklin's left, another disaster was unfolding, and this one sent a much darker message. Left guard Joel Bitonio, a longtime team anchor, the supposed rock of the offensive line, simply collapsed. Without contact. No defender pushing him back, no twist or late stunt to confuse him. He just dropped, straight down, like someone had flicked a power switch and shut him off mid-snap. 1 second he's upright, the next he's on all fours, barely making a move to recover. Meanwhile, the defender Bitonio was supposed to block walked in completely untouched. He didn't even have to try. Worse yet, he wasn't the only one. Multiple defenders came through on that same play, zero resistance. No chip, no redirect, just clean, unblocked runs straight at Shedeur Sanders, who had no time to even fake a handoff. He was swallowed up almost instantly. The drive ended not with just a failed conversion, but with a visceral blow to the quarterback, live on national television, as if the protection scheme simply didn't exist. It's not an exaggeration to say this play looked like something out of a bad football movie. Maybe a parody, but this was real. 4 quarters into a real NFL game. Grown men, professionals, paid millions, falling over each other, laying down, and practically inviting disaster into the pocket. Layers of this moment echoed far beyond the scoreboard. The visual impact alone told the story, defenders barely celebrating because the play was so easy. Sanders face down, slow to get up. Linemen walking back to the huddle like they didn't just let their teammate take another crushing, unnecessary shot to the ribs. No visible frustration. No fire. Not even a moment of urgency from any lineman on the field, like they expected it or had accepted it. The reaction from analysts watching in real time? Silence. Confused murmuring. Then a forced replay where they were trying to give something, anything, to explain what just happened. But there was nothing. No football justification. No misread defense. No physical mismatch. It was simply a failure of epic proportions that didn't make football sense. Then came the replays. Then the social media storm. Then the dissection of Bitonio's fall, Conklin's dive, and the total collapse of an offensive unit on one of the biggest plays of the game. Fans weren't just angry, they were floored. And the stats didn't help. By the end of that game, the Browns had allowed more pressures than any other team that week. That's not just not helping your quarterback, that's systemic dysfunction or something worse. Here's the catch, Joel Bitonio isn't a backup. He's not new, he's been in the league a decade. He's made multiple Pro Bowls. And yet, in this moment that required veteran leadership and poise, he didn't just get beat, he took himself out of the play. Uncontested. No resistance. Just gave up the block before it began. So how do you explain that? Some fans tried. He slipped. He lost balance. He tripped over his own feet. Watch the tape. Bitonio doesn't trip. He doesn't get knocked backward. He isn't reacting to anyone. There's no momentum working against him. He simply drops, legs buckle, posture fails, no attempt to recover. You'd think maybe he was injured until a few snaps later, he's back on his feet like nothing ever happened. And yes, football is messy. Weird things happen in the trenches. But the problem isn't just one strange fall. It's that we're now seeing dozens of bizarre moments like this across multiple games. Fall after fall, whiff after whiff. And for some reason, it always seems to happen when Sanders needs protection most, in key conversions, third downs, red zone pressure snaps. When any mistake is magnified and every collapse looks catastrophic. Even more alarming, nobody's being held accountable. No visible frustration from coaches. No teammates barking on the sidelines. No public apology. It's like these plays are being quietly brushed aside, as if talking about them might just make them worse. But here's the harsh truth NFL fans are waking up to. This wasn't just a bad play. It was a moment that shocked the league. A moment where the protection didn't merely collapse, it appeared to disappear. A moment where the trust between a quarterback and his line broke in front of 70,000 fans and millions more watching at home. And when you stack that play on top of everything else we've seen this season, it raises a terrifying question. If this wasn't sabotage, what was it? After a play like that, you'd expect some accountability, right? A coaching staff reviewing the film, calling out the mistakes, and demanding answers, especially when one of your highest-paid veterans literally collapses untouched on a critical fourth down. But that's not what happened. In fact, the reaction from inside the Browns' organization might be the most disturbing part of this entire story. Just days after the now infamous breakdowns lit up social media, the Browns' offensive line coach stood in front of reporters and gave a press conference that left people speechless. Instead of addressing the tape that fans and analysts had been tearing apart, instead of providing any explanation for what happened on those disastrous plays, he did the exact opposite. He lavished praise on Joel Bitonio. Not just a standard, he's our guy type of support. We're talking full-on, over-the-top admiration. The coach said, quote, "Joel's been outstanding. If he doesn't make the Pro Bowl this year, then people aren't watching what we're watching." He then doubled down, complimenting Bitonio's ability to fight through injury, stay consistent, and show up every Sunday like a true leader. He even used the word insane, not to describe the breakdowns we've seen in every game, but to describe Bitonio's work ethic and weekly performance. Let that sink in. A coach calling the most questioned player on the line insane, but in a good way, at the exact same time, national media is circulating clips of that same player melting on the field like he's trying not to block anyone. This wasn't damage control. This felt coordinated, like a forced narrative. Like someone inside that building is doing everything they can to protect certain names, no matter what the footage shows. And that raises a massive red flag, because if Bitonio was a rookie making these kinds of mistakes, the narrative would be brutal. He'd be benched, blasted by local radio, turned into a meme overnight. But instead, he's being defended like he's untouchable, like calling it what it is would violate some unwritten code inside the locker room. And maybe that's exactly what's happening. The word going around is that the coaching staff is under internal pressure to keep the peace. Multiple insiders have hinted that certain veterans on this Browns team carry serious weight, influence that even coaches are hesitant to challenge. It's part of what some are calling a protect the core culture, where longtime players are shielded from criticism regardless of performance, while younger players, especially outsiders, are left to take the fall. And if that's true, it paints an even darker picture. It suggests that this isn't just a group of players underperforming. It's an environment where failure is ignored and loyalty to the circle matters more than protecting your quarterback. That would explain a lot, because there's no rational football reason to praise Bitonio right now. Not when his side of the line is collapsing continually. Not when he's caught on film literally falling over as rushers scream past him unblocked. Not when Sanders is getting slammed in the backfield before a receiver even finishes his route. But if this praise isn't performance-based, then what is it? It might be political. Sources close to the team have claimed that Bitonio has been vocal about his doubts regarding Shedeur Sanders even before the season started. He allegedly didn't agree with the decision to name Sanders the starter right away. And he wasn't alone. It's been said that other veteran linemen in that room shared those sentiments. Quiet at first, then louder as the season went on, especially when the offense struggled early. Some of those early struggles, of course, came from the offensive line. So ask yourself, what happens when the veterans don't support the quarterback? What happens when the guy who's supposed to keep the pocket clean doesn't want the man behind him leading the team? You get plays like the ones we've seen. And then, when those plays are questioned publicly, you get coaches rushing in to smooth it over to protect the brand, to cover for the guys with tenure, the ones who have been part of the culture for years, even if that culture might be the problem. Because here's what doesn't lie: the tape. The tape doesn't care about contracts, seniority, or locker room politics. It doesn't bend to PR spin. And every time another person watches those plays and reacts with confusion, disbelief, or anger, it becomes harder and harder to believe that everything is fine. It's not just the line falling apart. It's the trust collapsing from the inside. Right now, Joel Bitonio is either a victim of the worst blocking system in the league or something else entirely. And while the coaching staff can keep playing damage control for now, there's one thing they can't control: the locker room. Because as this scandal starts spreading, other players, the ones who are tired of the false praise, tired of watching their QB get lit up, tired of hearing about team first, while veterans dodge accountability, they might start speaking out. And if that happens, the floodgates could open wide. And with every clip, every unanswered question, and every suspicious quote from inside this organization, one thing becomes more clear: this isn't just football anymore. When you start connecting the dots, the plays almost become secondary. Because once you look beyond the tape, beyond the missed blocks, the wild dives, the collapses on key downs, you begin to see what many believe is the real story here: resentment. It begins in the locker room. And according to multiple reports, it started the moment Shedeur Sanders was drafted. Let's be honest, Shedeur didn't come into the NFL like most rookies. He arrived with more media attention, more expectations, and a much bigger spotlight than your average first-year player. And there's one obvious reason for that: his father. Deion Sanders is a legend, arguably one of the most electrifying athletes the NFL has ever seen. But he's also a lightning rod, outspoken, controversial, and never afraid to call people out. And when his son entered the NFL, it wasn't just about talent. It became about legacy, about image, about a last name that holds generational weight. Sources from within the Browns organization have hinted that not all the veterans were thrilled with that. Some viewed Shedeur's elevation to starter as a political move, a publicity hire. The type of decision made upstairs, not one earned in the trenches. And if that perception was brewing before the season even started, it was only fueled each time Sanders got the nod in critical spots, while veterans with years in the system had to sit, bite their tongues, and watch. Think about this from the point of view of a veteran lineman. You're in your late 20s or early 30s. You've been grinding it out with the Browns, through bad seasons, new coordinators, rebuild after rebuild. Suddenly, a rookie comes in with cameras on him every week and his dad making headlines on social media. And whether Shedeur asked for the spotlight or not, he's in the middle of it. He's the story. He's the jersey getting sold. Now imagine that rookie starts barking out plays in the huddle, the same group of men who may have already decided they don't respect him. Maybe they think he didn't earn it. Maybe they think the job should have gone to someone else. Maybe they think he hasn't paid his dues yet. That's where this gets dangerous. Because in a locker room, success isn't just about talent. It's about trust, unity, chemistry. Offensive lines, especially, are built on that. 5 guys who speak the same silent language, who know where each other will be on every snap, who trust blindly that the guy next to them will be there when it counts. But when that trust breaks, so does everything else. Reports have started surfacing that several Browns veterans were not only skeptical of Shedeur's starter role, some were openly critical of it. And names are beginning to float. Joel Bitonio, Jack Conklin, and at least one other unnamed lineman have allegedly voiced discomfort behind closed doors with how the quarterback position was being handled. One source even claimed there was clear tension in the locker room between Sanders and multiple members of the offensive unit. Now, tension in the NFL is normal. Every locker room has its moments. But when that tension starts affecting performance, when it bleeds onto the field and shows up in real time as missed blocks, zero effort, people standing totally still, the line between drama and sabotage suddenly isn't so blurry anymore. And that brings us back to motivation. If those veterans didn't respect Shedeur, if they didn't want him leading that huddle, what better way to expose the front office's mistake than letting the rookie fail publicly? You don't have to say anything. You don't have to yell, fight, or quit the team. You just slow up, miss one block, let one guy through, stay silent on one protection call, and then you watch the downfall play out right in front of you on national TV. It's subtle, but it's deadly. In some ways, it's more dangerous than outright quitting because it looks like football. Casual fans can see a sack and think, oh, pressure got there quick. But coaches, analysts, the quarterback himself, they know when protection isn't real. They know when someone should have picked up that stunt, slid into that gap, called for help. They can spot the split-second decisions that weren't made, possibly on purpose. And these aren't rookies messing up complicated blitz looks. These are pro bowlers, veterans, guys who should know better. Ask yourself, how does a lineman with 10 years of elite experience fall over untouched on 4th and 1? How does a tackle just launch into the air like he's practicing ballet? How does a guard stare down a rusher coming full speed toward his quarterback and not even raise a hand to slow him? These aren't just physical failures. They might be psychological ones, rooted in a quiet, deliberate decision. I don't want him to succeed. And when that starts happening, it's no longer just about football. It's personal, it's political, it's cultural, and it destroys teams from the inside out. So yes, maybe what we're seeing is just dysfunction. Maybe it's poor coaching, missed assignments, or chemistry that hasn't clicked yet. But if the rumors are true, if this is a locker room revolt hiding behind broken blocks, Shedeur Sanders is more than just a quarterback. He's a target. And the terrifying part? This may just be the beginning. For a while, you could almost believe this was just a case of poor execution. A struggling O-line with chemistry issues, maybe missed communication, maybe bad coaching. It would be easier to swallow that version, easier to chalk it up to growing pains and technical flaws. But the problem is, people who know this game just aren't buying it anymore. Because the more film you watch, the more it becomes obvious. This isn't about a lack of skill. It's about a lack of effort, awareness, and coordination at the most basic level, the parts of offensive line play that are supposed to be automatic for any professional unit, especially one stacked with veterans. Every NFL O-line has to deal with pressure. Defensive stunts, twists, disguises, it's the chess game in the trenches. But the way the Browns, front five, respond to basic pressure concepts is bizarre. They don't look confused. They look disinterested, lifeless, slow. And that shouldn't happen, not here, not at this level. Analysts who study protection schemes for a living are sounding the alarm. Some have stopped using phrases like mental mistakes and now use terms like non-performance. One former offensive tackle who now consults for college programs put it bluntly, "This isn't bad blocking. This is zero blocking. It doesn't look like they're even trying to adjust." And he's not wrong. When defensive linemen twist, meaning two defenders crisscross at the snap, the offensive line is supposed to pass them off fluidly. One picks up the inside man, the other flashes to the outside. It's fundamental, day one stuff. But with the Browns, this never happens. Instead, one lineman freezes, while the other locks onto his original man and ignores the switch. The result? A free pass to the quarterback again and again. You'd expect high school teams to struggle with that. Not professional linemen with 5, 6, 10 years of experience. Worse than the missed pickups are the players who literally block nobody. Footage across 3 games shows Browns linemen just standing between gaps, facing no one, watching their quarterback get crushed. And it's not that they were beat. They never moved. They never even attempted to redirect or help a teammate. The pocket caves almost instantly, and Sanders has no time to process his reads, sometimes not even enough time to locate his primary target. In some of the worst breakdowns, you'll see 4 rushers go through against 5 offensive linemen, and 3 get through clean. That's mathematically impossible unless someone just outright stops doing their job. This isn't struggling, it's surrender. And let's take it further. Analysts pointed out that linemen are failing simple combo blocks, the core building blocks of any protection scheme. 2 linemen are supposed to double an initial defender and then pass one off to pick up a linebacker or late stunt. But time after time, we see the Browns double a man who isn't even rushing, while a dangerous blitz slides right past them. It's not just misreads, it's total disconnect. Like no one's talking. No pre-snap calls. No adjustments. Like they're not even part of the same play. Even Sanders' cadence isn't triggering any coordinated reaction. At this level, linemen make protection calls, point out threats, adjust alignments. But with the Browns, there's no fire, no last-minute signals, no bark changes. Just silence. And then chaos. It's as if there's a system, but no one wants to be part of it. And maybe that's the key to all of this, because these aren't rookies messing up new schemes. These are seasoned linemen with thousands of snaps under their belts. They've seen it all. There's no excuse for this level of dysfunction unless you're dealing with something deeper, not physical breakdowns, but emotional detachment, a refusal to commit. One coach privately told a reporter that the unit is playing like they don't care what happens to the quarterback. On film, it sure looks that way. There's no urgency. After the sack, the linemen don't rush to help him up. There's no finger pointing, no animated arguments, no my bad body language. Just players walking back to the huddle like they're going through the motions, checked out and unplugged from the outcome. But if players truly feel disconnected, especially from the quarterback, that behavior starts to make sense. Not morally, not professionally, but psychologically. If they don't buy into him as a leader, what's their real motivation to protect? This might also explain why no adjustments have been made weeks into the season. Usually, when protection is this bad, you reshuffle the line. Mix up pairings. Make a statement. But the Browns are sticking with the same players, the same combinations, and publicly brushing off concerns like nothing's happening, even as their quarterback keeps getting lit up like a punching bag. At some point, you have to stop asking if they're doing this on purpose and start asking why wouldn't they? Because when protection busts look this consistent, this coordinated at the exact wrong times over and over, it starts to look like a plan. Or at the very least, a quiet group decision to let things play out. To say nothing. To let Sanders learn the hard way, behind a wall of silence and missed blocks. And if that's true, if the protection is failing not by accident, but by design, then what we're witnessing isn't just an offensive line problem. It's sabotage in pads. The NFL has seen scandals before: bounty programs, deflated footballs, locker room fights. But what's happening in Cleveland? If it's proven true, this could be something the league has never dealt with at this level: deliberate internal sabotage. And it wouldn't just be a bad look, it could become a full-blown legal disaster. Think about what's really at stake here. We're not just talking about bad football. We're talking about deliberate inaction that leads directly to a player taking physical punishment, hits that could shorten his career or end it. If any part of this can be proven as intentional, the NFL is staring down potential consequences that go far past simple suspensions and fines. This starts bleeding into areas like legal liability, contract violations, and unsafe work environments. And it won't go quietly. Right now, according to multiple insiders, there are already quiet inquiries happening. The league reportedly has people reviewing footage. Not just random clips, but specific plays involving certain linemen, looking for patterns. If the film shows a repeatable tendency, like the same players failing in the same way at the most critical moments, that could be enough to launch a formal investigation. And if that unfolds, the fallout could be historic. Let's start with Shedeur Sanders himself. If he or his camp believes that his safety is being willfully neglected, that his teammates are intentionally letting defenders hit him, play after play, he could sue. Not just the organization, but individual players for contributing to a dangerous and negligent work environment. His team could argue that the Browns either knew what was happening or should have known, that they failed to act, and if any evidence backs that up. For example, text messages, film analysis, or even internal reports ignored by the coaching staff, that opens the door to a massive legal battle. But it doesn't stop there. If it comes out that these players purposely threw assignments, that they violated the terms of their contract by not performing in good faith, the Browns themselves could launch cases of their own. Breach of contract, fraudulent behavior, conduct detrimental to the team. These phrases aren't just PR spin. They're legal terms. And if the front office sees its reputation and investments going up in flames because certain players went rogue, they may come after those players hard, financially, legally, and publicly. Beyond that, there's yet another layer: the role of the NFL Players Association. Because if this is a case of senior players staging some kind of silent protest, targeting a rookie quarterback with internal sabotage, the union has to answer. Is this an issue of locker room hazing gone too far? A culture of veterans retaliating against what they perceive as organizational disrespect? If so, it's a disaster for the league's image and a direct challenge to the policies meant to protect players, especially rookies entering the league. The legal term that might haunt the Browns if this fully unravels is this: willful endangerment. The moment someone forces another person into a dangerous situation, knowing they could be harmed, that crosses a legal line. And if it's captured on film happening again and again, that evidence becomes a ticking time bomb. And for the NFL, that's the nightmare scenario. Because right now, the league is more focused than ever on player safety, especially quarterbacks. Concussion protocols, late hit rules, roughing penalties, they've built an entire system around protecting the most valuable position in the game. But all of that focuses on preventing defenders from hurting quarterbacks. So what happens when the harm is coming from inside the house? Do they have protocols for that? Do they have policies in place for sabotaged protections? For linemen, intentionally doing nothing? If not, and this continues to gain traction, the NFL could be caught completely off guard, with no roadmap for discipline, no precedent to rely on, and no way to sweep this under the rug. And the punishments? If sabotage is proven beyond a reasonable doubt, they would have to be severe. We could be talking about players being suspended without pay. Not for 1 or 2 games, but for half the season, or all of it. Maybe even banned entirely, depending how blatant the violations are. No league, no matter how powerful, can afford to look the other way when its core product, the game itself, is being undermined. Especially when a young quarterback is being physically punished as part of it. And that's just the players. Coaches and front office personnel might find themselves under fire too, especially if it's uncovered that they were aware of the problem and chose not to act. The Browns' offensive line coach has already become a central figure in the scandal, with his bizarre public praise of Joel Bitonio working directly against what fans can plainly see on the footage. If that kind of spin is protecting players who are intentionally tanking plays, that's not just bad coaching, that's organizational negligence. The Browns could face team-wide sanctions, loss of draft picks, massive fines, league-wide audits of their internal processes. It would be unprecedented, but in a case like this, the NFL would have no choice but to make an example, because failure to do so would invite the next scandal, the next hidden sabotage, the next team culture so toxic that it quietly eats itself alive, all while the league smiles for the cameras and pretends it's just bad play execution. So why not just let this fade? Why fan the flames? Because the damage is already done and it's spreading. Every week, new plays are surfacing. New moments where defenders waltz through untouched. New sequences where Sanders is bleeding time and taking hits before he can even blink. And with each snapshot, this stops looking like bad football and starts looking like intentional betrayal. If the league doesn't investigate and respond now, when the story is still growing, then the first time Shedeur Sanders suffers a serious injury, something that changes his season or his career, the questions won't be about who missed a block. They'll be about why no one stopped this when they saw it coming. It's easy to get lost in the headlines, the hype, the clips going viral, and the speculation about who's doing what on the field. But behind all of it, behind every missed block and crushing hit, there's one person taking the damage, both physically and mentally: Shedeur Sanders. This isn't just some talented rookie having a tough start. This is a young quarterback walking into his dream, the NFL, and finding out that the very people who are supposed to protect him might not only be failing, but actively refusing to help. Imagine that for a second. You grow up surrounded by football. You're raised in locker rooms, sidelines, watching film, studying how the greats did it. You train like your life depends on it. You put in every hour, every rep, every sacrifice to reach this level. Not just to make it, but to lead. And when you finally get your shot, when you're alone under the lights, you look around the line in front of you and realize they don't have your back. And it happens once, maybe you brush it off. The NFL is fast. Things go wrong. You're a rookie, you assume it's part of the learning curve. But then it happens again, and again, and again. By the 3rd or 4th time someone comes through unblocked and lays you out, something clicks. You stop assuming it was a mistake. You start questioning everything. That trust, the connection between a quarterback and his offensive line, is sacred in football. It's not something you can fake. You have to believe in the guys in front of you completely, because the moment you drop back, you're vulnerable in every direction. And when things are right, you feel it. The pocket forms. You have time. You feel like you're in control. But when it's wrong, when every snap feels like a trapdoor under your feet, that doesn't just break rhythm, it breaks confidence. It rewires your instincts. You wait for the hit before even looking downfield. You shorten every decision-making window. You question if your next drop back might be your last. Veteran quarterbacks develop that internal clock with experience, when to move, when pressure's coming, when to bail. What Sanders is dealing with. That's not instinct, that's survival mode. Analysts who have reviewed the tape have made it clear. When Shedeur actually has time to throw, he looks great. His reads are sharp. His mechanics are clean. He's going through full progressions and even making off-schedule throws when plays break down. But it's rare. Because most of the time, he's running for his life not from the defense, but from the absence of protection. And on top of that, he knows the world is watching. Every sports show, every social media page, every camera is zoomed in on him, not the guy's missing assignments. The blame always falls on the quarterback. Every loss becomes a referendum on his talent, his leadership, his ability to adapt. Meanwhile, the collapse happening in front of him continues without question, until now. How do you mentally lock in as a leader, as a teammate, as a competitor, when the people you rely on most show no urgency when you're getting hit? When you're lying on the turf, slow to get up, and they don't even reach a hand down, most quarterbacks are protected on and off the field. Guys put their bodies on the line for them. They go to war to give them a fighting chance. That's how trust is built. But Shedeur, he's out there alone. And what happens if this doesn't change? What if this continues? Because that kind of pressure, over time, doesn't just leave bruises. It leaves scars, the kind that don't show up in game stats, but show up in a player's decision-making, in their mechanics, in their confidence under pressure. It's the kind of trauma that can derail entire careers, not because the player wasn't good enough, but because the support system failed them in their most vulnerable stage. Ask any quarterback who's played behind a terrible line early in their career. They'll tell you, it messes with your head. You develop habits, rushing throws, bailing from clean pockets, seeing ghosts, and those habits don't leave easily. Even when you eventually stand behind a good line, those early scars follow you. You flinch where you should stand tall. You cover up when you should step into the throw. You doubt yourself. And sometimes, you never get that back. That's the reality Shedeur Sanders is living right now. He's being forced to develop bad instincts just to survive. And worst of all, if it's true that this is being done on purpose, by teammates who have already decided he's not their guy, then Sanders is trapped in a system where effort isn't earned, it's withheld. It's a betrayal, not just of him, but of the principle every football locker room is supposed to live by. Protect your quarterback, no matter what. It's the most sacred job on the field. You don't have to like your signal caller, but once the ball is snapped, your job is to protect him like your life depends on it. And when players stop doing that, they're not just breaking a play, they're breaking the team. And that's where this really hits hard. Because watching Shedeur now, at the start of what was supposed to be a promising career, feels less like a coming-of-age story and more like a cautionary tale. A young athlete throwing his body into every snap, still trying to extend plays, still going toe-to-toe with elite defenses, still believing the guys in front of him will come through next time. But what happens when next time never comes? The damage here isn't just about quarterback hits or blown assignments. It goes deeper, into something that could tear apart a franchise and echo across the league for years. Because if these patterns continue, if the Browns truly ignored or enabled what's happening on their offensive line, they're not just dealing with a player issue. They're facing a full-blown identity crisis. And that's not a dramatic overstatement. It's the cold reality of what happens when a team allows the most important position on the field, the quarterback, to be targeted by his own teammates without stepping in. Right now, the Browns are on the verge of becoming untouchable. Not in the good way, in the way that scares off free agents, poisons locker rooms, and hangs over head coaches for seasons to come. Because even if the front office wants to paint this as a temporary rough patch, the reputation forming outside that building tells a different story. And reputations spread quickly in the NFL. Other quarterbacks are watching this situation, you can bet on that. Young players entering the league are watching. So are quarterbacks in college, veterans nearing free agency, offensive linemen around the league, and agents who advise them. Because if Cleveland becomes known as the place where you step into the huddle and have no guarantee your line will block for you, who in their right mind would want to go there? Think about that. Quarterbacks already have the shortest shelf life in football. You give them the worst-case scenario, a locker room that's divided, a coaching staff that looks the other way, and veterans who punish leadership decisions through inaction, it becomes a career death trap. And in this league, perception is everything. What player wants to play for a team that covers up dysfunction? What parent wants their kid drafted into a franchise that lets things like this happen? What fan base sticks around when they realize the team's problems aren't about talent, but about toxic culture? If the Browns let this unravel and still decide to protect the locker room leaders, they're taking a side, and it's not the side that builds championships. Because culture doesn't get fixed with motivational slogans or highlight videos. It gets fixed with accountability, with transparency, with someone in the building standing up and saying, "This stops now." But so far, nobody has. Not the coaches, not the front office, not even ownership. Week after week, game after game, this offensive line continues to put Shedeur Sanders in harm's way, and the silence from leadership is its own kind of answer. It tells fans and players alike that this behavior isn't just being tolerated, it might be quietly supported. Or worse, strategically ignored. And that's when the rot starts to spread. Look around the league, you'll never see a consistently great team without strong culture first. The Chiefs, the Eagles, the 49ers, talent matters, sure, but culture is the foundation. Guys buy in. Everyone runs toward the fire, not away from it. They protect each other, fight for each other. They trust one another so deeply you can feel it, even through the screen. But Cleveland? Right now, the trust is gone. Shedeur Sanders can't trust his line. The line clearly doesn't trust or respect their quarterback. Coaches don't seem to be calling anyone out. Leaders aren't speaking up. And fans, they're not dumb, they see it. They talk about it on forums. They break down clips now just like the analysts do. And they're not seeing a team, they're seeing a group of unconnected individuals trapped in the same jersey. That's what happens when sabotage echoes into silence. It becomes normal. It becomes expected. Until one day, fans stop asking why it's happening and just shrug it off as what the Browns do. And let's not forget, Cleveland's trying to dig out of a decades-long hole of dysfunction. This franchise already has a reputation for controversy, instability at quarterback, and crumbling under pressure. And now, just when it looked like they'd found a young, promising face of the future, it's not just a step back. It's a full regression into the chaos this franchise was supposed to be leaving behind. This situation also places Shedeur in an impossible position. If he speaks up, he risks being viewed as a problem rookie who couldn't win over the locker room. But if he stays quiet, his reputation pays the price while his body absorbs the consequences. Young quarterbacks are built to lead, but not alone. And right now, he's being forced to carry an entire dysfunctional system on his back before he's even played a full season. That's not development. That's destruction. So what about next year? Even if the Browns clean house and bring in new staff, will that fix the wounds left behind? Will receivers want to sign on? Will top-tier linemen choose Cleveland in free agency after seeing what happened here? Or will everyone remember that this was the team that let their quarterback twist in the wind while the front office looked away? Because right now, it looks like Shedeur Sanders is giving more to this team than he's getting in return. And at this point, that imbalance isn't just hurting the offense, it's threatening to define the entire franchise. So where does this leave us? With hours of damning footage, a trail of missed assignments, a rookie quarterback absorbing hit after hit, a team silent in the face of growing accusations, teammates who don't react, coaches who praise disaster, and fans wondering if they're witnessing the unthinkable, not just NFL-level dysfunction, but willful sabotage disguised as failure. And if that's even partially true, this doesn't end with game film breakdowns or heated post-game debates. It ends in investigations, suspensions, broken careers, and lawsuits that could stain the Cleveland Browns for years. Because there are lines you don't cross in this sport, and this, what we're seeing week after week, steps over every one of them. But it's also bigger than Cleveland, because what happens here sets a precedent. If the league allows this behavior to go unpunished, ignored, or buried, what message does that send to locker rooms across the NFL? That politics beats accountability. That sabotage is just another form of team dynamics. That it's okay to stand by and watch your quarterback fall, as long as you smile during the press conference, that's not football. That's betrayal, wrapped in silence and protected by uniforms. Right now, the story unfolding in Cleveland isn't about record books or playoff races. It's about the soul of a franchise and whether the NFL is built tough enough to root out something this ugly from the inside. Because Shedeur Sanders deserves better. Every young quarterback fighting for their chance deserves better. And if we don't hold teams accountable when the sabotage comes from within, then what even is the point? This isn't just a team protecting poorly. This is a team protecting nothing. And until the league responds, until someone takes a real stand, until that locker room is held to account, the hits will keep coming. The silence will grow louder. And Shedeur Sanders will keep dropping back into a pocket that was never real to begin with. Because sometimes the biggest threat to a quarterback isn't across the line. It's standing right behind him.